couple of corners, we've had a couple of incidents that leaves us at this point with a virtual safety car.
Yeah, it was Formula 1 Farah. A bit of contact, nothing major, just two people battling to find the line going into the next corner. And D. Perez just ended up spinning from it, but I'd call that a racing incident personally.
Okay, I just want to give a shout out as well to Trugster, who of course was disqualified during the first qualifying session, and after a couple of corners he's made his way from 18th up into 13th place, so that is a fantastic start from him. We are back racing though with 31 laps under our belt to go here in Singapore, and of course the bright lights and the dark nights of Singapore give us much more excitement, with VSM Sandman out in first on the medium tyres, Martin Hunt in second, with Danger David currently sat in third place. We've then got the soft tyres of Formula 1 Farah and Quincy. Interesting strategy from both of those to go for, as VSM Sandman sets the fastest lap of 1:57.4. Expect that to be beaten very, very shortly. VSM Sandman, we're jumping on board, should I say, sorry, with Quincy at the moment in fourth place in the Mercedes. He's less than a second behind Danger David, but of course we don't get DRS for another couple of laps. The Nocebo on hard tyres has boxed, so when you start on hard tyres and you've got a pit, it throws chaos in the air, doesn't it? Because you expect those hard tyres to be saved for later on if there's any incident, and he's moved himself onto medium tyres with an expectancy, if you'd probably say, around about 15 laps, so he's still going to have to pit one more time, but it now puts him some distance behind Sir Ibo in the Haas to try and close that gap a little bit down the line. So the strategy that he's gone for of the hard tyres hasn't paid off, Skin.
Definitely, mate. Just on board with D. Perez now, looking to claim that fifth place back. But again, it's good. It's hard to overtake on these street races. We talk about it all the time. But as I say that, Formula 1 Farah has gone wide on that left turn, which has opened the door. D. Perez back up into fifth place, so good recovery. Quincy will be next on his list. But looking at it, Quincy is not taking that fourth spot and being comfortable with it. He's actually pushing Danger David. It is now around half a second behind him, so quite interesting. Oh, Quincy damaged. Complete loss of the front wing, and
Perez is out.
Perez is out.
Oh wow,
full safety
Quincy's
car.
gone. Yeah, I'm not surprised. We've just been on board with that. Quincy's got a 5-second time penalty. I think that's completely understandable. He's gone wide, gone straight into the wall, and then D. Perez is just, through no fault of his own, tried to take that corner, and he's gone straight into the back of Quincy. That's a bit of a lifeline for Danger David in the fact that Quincy's now fallen away from him, but it's made things tougher in the fact that his teammate is now out of the race, and the advantage that Red Bull could have gained on the fact that there is no John Z has just been made so much tougher, as we're now under a safety car, which means we are on board with Quincy, who has gone into the pits. He was on soft tyres, he's going to come out on hard tyres, so it's going to be interesting to see just how long those hard tyres last him, and if this is going to be a saving grace for him. The Nocebo, of course, who pitted on lap 1, will probably see the best advantage of this, as he's going to now be allowed to catch up with the safety car, and it is going to be the time setter is VSM Sandman out in first place at the moment. So after 3 laps, we've got our first safety car. I did say there was only going to be 2, so bet a lot of money on the fact there's going to be 12. Now, there's a safety car, and on lap 1, we had a virtual safety car. So we're already on the 2 limit that I set, and we've still got a good 28 laps left to go. Sandman out in first place. F1 Martin Hunt in second. Danger David in third place. Formula 1 Farah in fourth. Toxic in the Alfa Romeo in fifth place. Toblizine in 6th, Maverick in 7th, RS012 in 8th, Quan in 9th, Trugster up into 10th place. Fantastic climb from him, starting in 18th place in this. In the 3 laps in, has been brought closer to the group, but he's also up into 10th place in the Alfa Tauri, and it has been a fantastic climb for him as well. Last couple of races, I think he was close to winning Driver of the Day over the last couple of weeks as well, and deservedly so, but to be down up in 10th place after just 3 laps, and now bunched together with everybody else, I think he's a favourite of mine to go up and get himself onto the podium. If he's listening, I hope he doesn't take pressure from that. T-Brown in 11th place, Racing Wheel down in 12th, Skid Soul and the Aston Martin in 13th place, Cerribo in 14th, Tarkan Gino in 15th, Quincy in 16th, the Nocebo in 17th, and the first casualty that Singapore has to offer is that of the Red Bull of D. Perez, who, the last time there was no John Z, won a race. This time there's no John Z, he isn't even going to finish the race. So, plenty of different strategies in and amongst the drivers. We've still got Formula 1 Farah and Tobliansen in soft tyres. Nobody pitting at the moment and taking advantage of this safety car. I did tell Skinner to give him a little bit of a break whilst I take us through the next couple of laps, but I didn't expect a safety car to put that to a break. So, Skin, I am going to ask you about the strategies that drivers have gone for and the decisions not to pit. So they're obviously favouring track position over the pit stops. Is that a brave choice or a smart choice in your opinion?
It's hard to say. They've surprised me quite a bit with the approach, because we've always took whenever we've played, we've always took the mindset of if safety car comes out, you pit, regardless really of when that is, even if it is at the end of the first lap. You see in the actual Formula 1 as well that teams like to take advantage. So, having watched a few of these races now, I am always quite surprised that teams don't take advantage of pitting under the safety car. I'd like some insight as to why that is, whether it's they don't want to drop down the grid, but you're going to expect that anyway. So it does seem that they seem to take a different approach to what we're used to doing, and certainly what they do on an actual Formula 1 track as well. What do you think the advantages are of not pitting under the safety car, where historically you would assume that's the best time, because you're not losing out as much time?
I don't think I've seen a race yet where only one pit stop has been done by drivers. I think most of the races we've covered have required more than one pit stop. And I don't know if that's down to damage that cars have received. I don't know whether that's down to manual tyre wear, of course. With all assist soft, they're responsible for that kind of thing themselves. I'm not quite sure. But the strategies I think they've got to go for is they're not pitting now because the tyres can last a little bit longer. And hell, it's Singapore. There's chances that there's going to be another incident at some point in there. And if that happens, maybe you're going to pit at that point. So I'm not sure. I personally, if I started on the soft tyres, which I always tend to do because I know how clumsy you can be, I tend to start on the soft tyres. I tend to start on the soft tyres and pit. And then from there, when of course you've made that collision or somebody's made that collision, I'll pit and move on to the hard tyres to see me through for the rest of the race. On this occasion, people have started on the hard, started on the mediums, and gone for that longevity straight away to try and get themselves track position, to then maybe pit off the back of it. And that's where you look to like Maverick, RS, Trugster, T-Brand, Racing Wheel and Skid Solo, and maybe even Quincy in 15 laps time to see just where that works for them, as we are getting ourselves ready. And it is VSM Salman that will be the pace setter, and he gets us round the corner, and we are back racing once again here in Singapore. And that took an extra 52 seconds to take us around the track of Singapore. Of course, with VSM Salman out in first place, I think we've got another lap until we get to see DRS, and that's where most of the overtakes will be made. It is Martin Hunt in second place, and it's important for me, in this opinion, for Danger David to get past him as soon as possible, because if Martin Hunt is going to be holding up at any point, Danger David is going to be backed into the likes of Formula 1 Fire and Toxic, and there's going to be a DRS train there, and that's going to make it very difficult for him to get past as well. The person that's really going to struggle with that is Martin Hunt, of course. Everyone behind him is going to have DRS. He is not, because Sandman is pushing further and further away, and this is the shades of the old Sandman that we saw that was dominant for so long, and of course is the consecutive three-time, should I say, world champion and the current defending champion. So we'll see just where this puts him at the end of the race. But he currently, on a couple of laps in, half the track in fact, has a 2-second lead over Martin Hunt in second place in the Williams. As we've just seen another car go wide there, it was Formula 1 Farah. Sorry, Martin Hunt's the Alpine. The Formula 1 Farah in Williams went wide, but he's managed to hold his position with Toxic just behind him. But that is very close, and we'll stay on board with Toxic, who goes up onto the inside. He's going to have the outside line onto the next corner. He's going to have the inside line on this one, and he smoothly takes that overtake off Formula 1 Farah, who's gone a little bit wide and tries to regain his position. And I think it is going to be Toxic that walks out with that position up into fourth place. And the Ferrari of Toblinson is just behind Formula 1 Farah, and now he's putting pressure on the Williams driver. But that is some class racing between Toxic and Formula 1 Farah, who went wide on a couple of occasions, but didn't rush back onto the track and cause a collision, was very composed in it and battled quite nicely against the Alfa Romeo. But we are on board with Formula 1 Farah at the moment, who is on the soft tyres, and you'd expect pushing at Toxic in just a couple of laps time when those soft tyres are really at their peak heat, shall we say. Behind him is the Ferrari on soft tyres as well, whose teammate has just set the fastest lap. But now there is a 3-second, nearly 4-second gap between Toxic in 4th place and Danger David in 3rd. So that little battle has allowed the Red Bull to push himself further away from the train that was, as we have a yellow flag at the moment, and I think it is Quan who had the yellow flag, but he seems to have sorted his situation out. It is not him, it is in fact Skid Solo, and we're going to jump on board with Skid Solo, who went wide heading through Sector 1. He's back on track, and it doesn't look like he's got any damage either, so he's going to be good to carry on those hard tyres in the Aston Martin, but it does mean he has fallen down into 17th place for the time being, as we jump on board with Danger David, who is now just behind F1 Martin Hunt, and he is in touching distance to get past him as well. DRS could make all the difference when it is enabled, I believe, at the end of this lap, with the Red Bull currently sat in 3rd place. Less than half a second separates the two, and he looked like he was about to go for an overtake there, but didn't want to risk it going under the tunnel. And we prepare ourselves to finish lap 6, start lap 7, and introduce what I hope is the drag reduction system, which adds an extra 10 miles per hour, of course, to the back of the cars. And if you haven't heard that 20 times within a race on a Sunday evening, we'll mention it a couple of times more for you here on a Monday evening, as well as he opens up DRS onto the pit straight. Not quite long enough though for him, but he is within touching distance, and if he can get DRS open in the next couple of corners and opportunities, there's a chance he will go. Oh, he has gone ahead of Martin Hunt. It didn't look like he'd gone ahead of him there. The camera angle that he showed me looked like he was stuck behind him, but he's managed to get ahead of him into 2nd place. I've done a U from last week where we missed the overtake.
Not so funny now, is it?
Oh, mate, it can happen to the best of us, that's just proven. Right,
and the worst of us, as proven last week.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as saying the worst, but we're with RS0121, who now, he looked like he'd nearly taken a bit of a bang there from T. Brannan to the back, but he's managed to avoid any sort of collision, as he's just behind Maverick, and I think it's the fact that these drivers know what they're doing, but they're getting very, very close, whereas for me, I have to break a corner before the next corner, don't I, just to make sure I can take it comfortably. So, when these get very close, it gets me on edge a little bit, thinking there's a chance that there's going to be a bit of a collision, but we are on board with RS0121 to give us the view of him trying to get past the McLaren of Maverick in the battle for 7th place, as going wide just there was T-Bran, and I think he's taken a bit of a collision. He has, he's lost a bit of his front wing there, and I think, is that the same corner where we saw Quincy go off as well, and the
no, the Quincy one was going into the bridge.
Was it going into the bridge? Right, okay, I thought that was the same corner then where D. Perez went out of the race, but T-Bran's taking a bit of wing damage, and it means that he might have to pit momentarily as well, which allowed Truckster to move up another position. I didn't get to hear your opinion of Truckster's start to the race, because a couple of laps ago when the safety car came out, he'd moved himself up into 10th place, and he was still on the hard tyres that started the race for him, so he's still fighting with his strategy, and he managed to make 8 places in 8 laps.
Yeah, great start. I was just on board there between him and Quan. About a lap or so ago, really good battle for that 10th spot. T-Bran has now joined that. Quan ended up going very slowly into a corner, which meant Truckster managed to take a lead. Just got half an eye on the back of the grid at the moment. It's a bit of a 3-way battle between Racing Wheel, No Sabo and Tarkin Gino. A bit of collision there as well, which means Racing Wheels had to go off track, potentially open the door for the No Sabo, but managed to keep hold of 13th place for now. Looking up and down the rest of the grid, RS0121 is having a little look at Maverick in 7th, but not in a position where I can overtake at the moment. But I suppose the headline, as we said at the start of the race, Sandman 6 seconds ahead after 8 laps, after a safety car bunched them all back up together as well. Over a 6-second lead. I mean, you know, when he wakes up in the morning and what's his name? I can't remember his name. Isn't racing that week. He's got to be licking his lips and having a bit of a spring in his step as he gets up in the morning, because it's total domination yet again.
It's AMS Johnsy.
Johnsy, that was it. Couldn't remember. If you watch it, mate, or you listen back, I apologise. Johnsy it is. But I don't think...
Sorry, mate, he's only won every race that he's been in.
Yeah, well, Sandman's won every race that he's not been in, and that's more.
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't.
No, he hasn't. But alright, he's won every race that I've watched. Every race that I've watched that Johnsy's not been in, Sandman's won. Which is more than the amount of races that Johnsy's won, so is what it is. But yeah, over 6 seconds ahead, what can you say?
Yeah, it's just dominant again, isn't it, from Sandman and Danger David in 2nd place. I think It's tough because he's been consistent throughout, and Sandman's had those little tough moments where he's ended up down in 7th and 8th place, and he had a race earlier on in the season where his strategy really didn't help him, and it led to him falling even further down. But his teammate's doing some work at the moment on Formula 1 Faro, going on to the outside. Formula 1 Faro defends well in the battle for 5th place. We head through Sector 1, and this time it's going to be with ease and the DRS that allows Tobelenzen. I'm going to go with Tobelenzen to take 5th place away from him on those soft tyres, and I don't think you're going to have too much longer left before those soft tyres are going to be worn and torn, and you're going to have to look at pitting. So would you maybe go for hard tyres to see you through, get yourself those soft tyres to get track position, then box for the hard tyres, and just try and make sure that when everyone else is pitting, you've kind of got that advantage?
Seems like the best way to go in terms of if you want in a one-stop strategy. You do have to be mindful of safety cars coming into play. Tobelenzen, after that great climb, gone very, very wide into a corner stop. Don't think he took damage. I think managed to get the brakes on, but has allowed RS 0121 and Maverick to overtake him.
Oh wow, that was interesting.
Yeah, now there's a bit of a bunch. Go on, sorry.
I was on board with RS 0121. Is that what you was about to say?
Yeah, I was going to say there's a nice little bunch for that 5th place at the moment now.
Yeah, well, it was sat with, of course, Formula 1 Faro, and as he went to take that corner, RS121, he slammed on the brakes, he got the position, and slammed on the brakes on the straight after he'd taken that corner, and then moved away, obviously, very slowly. So I don't know if he changed gear too early or a little bit too late, or what it was, but he seemed a little bit stuck, and he lost the position back to Formula 1 Faro. But now he's got DRS here, and Maverick's got it just behind him, but he's got the outside line, which means it's advantage for Formula 1 Faro. But on the inside line now, I'm not sure if that counts as a bit of a corner cut, as he stays on the outside line, going past Formula 1 Faro into 5th place, takes it comfortably, and holds the position heading through Sector 1. As we go into the next DRS zone, this time it's going to be DRS with both Maverick and with Formula 1 Faro, so it's defending work for the Mercedes, and I think the straight isn't going to quite be long enough to prove too much of a threat to him. Sorry for interrupting you now, I'll head back towards you.
Right, mate, I was going to put myself. Yeah, at the moment, not really too much happening. I think your prediction of 2 safety cars could be on something there. We've only had 1. No, a third of the way.
Are we not counting the virtual?
No, we don't count the virtuals. It's full safety car or nothing in it. But yeah, a third of the way through the race. Sandman now 8 seconds ahead. Danger David very comfortable in his own right. His second 6 seconds ahead of Martin Hunt as Maverick looks to take 6th spot. And will do it very good. Did well to get the inside line into that corner. Really powered on in the straight. Oh! Maverick is out. Maverick is out. Was on board Formula 1 Faro. Oh, I don't know. I feel like he's gone in with a bit too much speed into that corner there. Maverick has put the brakes on. He's got it in the back and sent into the corner, so he is out. Did you manage to catch that there, Adam? As we get a full safety car.
I was on board with RS0121 throughout that, and I think the three of them were always, like for the last couple of laps, have been flirting with collisions, haven't they? As a late decision from RS0121 to stay out on track. Everyone else has pitted onto these hard tyres, and he stayed out. He was going into the pits, and he cut across right at the last minute to get himself back out on track. So he might have seen that everyone else has pitted, and he's chosen to stay out. But at the moment, him and Trugster sat in 2nd and 3rd place, is separating VSM Sandman from Danger David. So Danger David, instead of having that quick attack on Sandman, it's going to be difficult for him now.
Yeah, it's going to throw up, as there's a bit of almost contact there. Quincy coming round, he's on hard tyres, so no need to pit. Martin Hunt was coming out of the pit. There's almost a collision going into the 2nd or 3rd corner there, but Quincy has gone up into 5th. I'm just looking, the top 7 all have hard tyres on, so potentially no need for any of them to pit for the rest of the race, unless they obviously take on damage or anything like that. So could the 7 as they are at the moment, could that be how the grid is laid out by the time we finish that 31st lap? I'm just looking now. Yeah, like you say, RS and Trugster have managed to move up phenomenal from Trugster after having to start from 18th after that error in qualifying or glitch or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's your second safety car, mate. I was talking. I am on board. I am on board for all the incidents tonight. Talking Gino is just going round. Left turn coming up, he's just edged his car right, nudged it right just to get the right line, and his car has been launched into the wall on the right hand side. He's lost his front right, and there's another, in the space of a lap, that is another driver that is out due to contact with a wall going into a corner. Yeah, just, I said left hand turn, he's edged right, nudged the car right just to get the right line. I don't know what's happened, but he's got thrown into the wall at great speed. Looked like faster speed than what he was going at the time due to the safety car, but Tarkin Gino is out for the AlphaTauri. So, I mean, based on what's happening at the minute over the last couple of laps, anything can happen.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? We were talking about that when you said about only one safety car coming out, and then, of course, the next safety car comes out. That there might have been an 8-second lead for Sandman, but an innocent decision to just move right a little bit could prove all the difference. And when you pit onto these tyres on all assists off, you've got to make sure that you're the one that's heating them tyres up, aren't you? Like, for us, sometimes in generic leagues, you usually get to see that people are going to come back out onto these tyres and the car itself heats them up just because of how the settings are set. For all assists off, you've got to get them heat into the tyres yourself. And when you're under a safety car on these new tyres, that job is, of course, made so much tougher. And we are on lap 12, we're heading towards halfway through the race, and we've had quite a lot of these cars already pitting under the safety car, so it is interesting to see these different approaches. RS0121, you'd think him and Truxton might have a bit of an advantage. You know, them tyres are quite warm. You've got Sandman out there at the moment on cold, hard tyres that he needs to try and get this grip and try and get this heat behind almost immediately, otherwise he's going to be under the pressure from a Mercedes and an AlphaTauri that are both performing admirably well so far throughout the qualifying and now, of course, through the race as well. So it's going to be tough for him to have to defend. It's going to be even tougher for Danger David, who on those cold tyres doesn't just have to defend from Quincy, but he also has to try and pile the pressure on Truxton and RS0121 to be able to get himself past Sandman, or competing, of course, with his closest challenger for the championship at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Just want to, while we're in the safety car, before the action gets back underway and the racing and quest for position resumes, just want to give a shout out to Evo, not racing with us tonight, but he is watching the stream and he's passed on his compliments for the commentary so far. Got to give you credit for that. It has been largely a one-man show, as my plans for the evening have changed about 17 times from the start of qualifying, and I also had to fit a bit of food in as well because I'd not eaten, so appreciate that, mate, and full credit to you. But yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to Evo watching and hope to see you back on the grid soon.
Hopefully so. He's been performing well as well, to be fair. He was my driver of the day a couple of weeks ago. I think he's been performing well, but you get quite a few of these drivers. I mean, we talk about obviously Sandman and Danger David and now AMS Johns as your front runners. Let's not write off RS0121 or Truxton or Evo or Quincy or even Martin Hunt. They've all been performing really well over these last couple of weeks, and you know, it throws it up as a bit of excitement for the race a little bit. But we are about to get things back underway, and we'll see if the decision not to pit is going to be a good one for the Mercedes and the AlphaTauri, as VSM Sandman, as the pace setter, goes across the checkered flag to get things back underway. He is the leader, 1.3 seconds currently, and he was very quick onto that pit straight to get himself up into the 8th gear to push himself a bit further ahead of the likes of RS0121 and Truxton. So we're going to jump on board at the moment with Danger David, who is the one that is going to have to try and get past both of those two. The last thing he needs is to be kept behind them in the dirty air on the colder tyres for too long if he's going to put any sort of effort into getting past VSM Sandman. Providing no incidents, you'd like to think that Sandman and Danger David are on these tyres to the very end. There's been an overtake between Toby Enzen and T-Bran, and it looks like there's a battle down in 11th place. Again, I'll come across to you for that in just a moment's time, as Danger David goes up onto the inside to try and get past Truxton, who is in 3rd place at the moment. He gets the inside line for the next corner as well, but the DRS just doesn't quite stretch far enough for him, and he nearly collides with Quincy, as this time he goes onto the outside and gets past him and gets the position, and Quincy this time nearly colliding with Truxton. Of course, Danger David now up into 3rd place, and he's got that chance now to try and put the pressure onto RS0121, who's got 2.5 second lead of him at the moment. Skin will come across to you.
I was just on board with Quincy there as you were commentating on it, mate. Quincy a bit hot on the gas going into that corner, almost contact with Danger David. And Martin Hunt as well gave Quincy a little bit of a shunt, but looked like he managed to hit it central on his wing, so I don't think he took any damage. But yeah, some drivers here looking for a podium spot, very, very eager to make an early and aggressive move coming out of that safety car. Sandman just flown ahead again, 4.2 seconds ahead of RS in second, as Martin Hunt looks to make a move, and Truckster is pitting. I didn't see him take any contact during that lap. If you did at all, Adam, please say, but surprising tactic to pit in the lap after the safety car's gone in and not take advantage of the safety car while it was there.
No, I didn't see any damage for him, but I think it was a decision of, he thought he could maybe be a bit more competitive on those tyres, and it just hasn't seemed to work for him, and as a result of it, he has fallen down, and he just didn't want to risk falling down too far, so he's decided to make that pit stop now as Martin Hunt and Quincy have a bit of a battle. I just stayed on board there for the moment as Danger David took second place away from RS0121, and so we jump on board with Quincy, and there's an incident there, a collision between Quincy and Martin Hunt. I don't know if there's any damage, but going around that corner, Quincy had the inside line, and he's got the outside line now going back round onto the straight. I think there's been a couple of incidents there with Quincy that you've already mentioned yourself, maybe a little bit too hot on the gas, and it's caused an incident there with Martin Hunt, but it looks like no damage as Martin Hunt can continue that pressure. He's taken a spin, and there's a hit there from Toxic, and he's taken quite a spin as well as he's fallen himself down into 9th place at the moment. He's going to try and get himself back onto track facing
Martin
the right
Hunt
way.
Is all
and
over the place, mate. It's
incident.
causing absolute chaos.
This is skin Marco every season as Martin Hunt takes a time penalty and goes into the wall. Truckster now in 15th place tries to get past him. Quincy takes a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. This is safety car number 3 on lap 14 of 31 as Martin Hunt is out, and it gives that decision to pit. Maybe a bad one for Truckster. If he just waited on that little extra longer, he'd have been able to pit under the safety car and wouldn't have lost as much of a position. But Quincy has a drive-through penalty, which of course can't be served under the safety car. But it is Sandman, it is Danger David, the front 2 drivers in this race. Are we about to see, when this race gets back underway, finally the 2 Goliaths of this track go head to head?
I mean, we keep hoping for it, and it keeps not happening. I'm starting to think if it's a battle that's even possible. It's like dreaming for years that you're going to get Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua in their primes, and it never quite happens, but maybe. We're halfway through the race now. Quincy's pitted. We'll still have to serve that drive-through penalty, as you mentioned earlier. But yeah, that's what now, 4 safety cars, is it? 3, 4?
This is number 3. 4 if you include in the virtual safety car. But there goes the pit stop now of Racing Wheel, who has fallen himself down into 13th place. Kid Solo, T-Brand, the Nosebo, Toxic, Quincy, and RS0121 all pitting onto medium tyres to try and see them through to the end of this race. It did say the expectation, the life expectancy of those medium tyres is around 15 laps. So we could be onto something, or they could be onto something there. But it does mean Ferrari currently sit, as it stands, with all pit stops needed to be done, in 1st place and 4th place. Now, we touch on the Drivers' Championship quite a lot and how close this is, but let's talk about that Constructors' Championship. Haas, nowhere to be seen at the moment. Red Bull, 2nd place, and the other driver is out. As it stands, Ferrari have a huge opportunity to close that gap. And Williams, they're not too far away either. What's your thoughts on that?
It's probably, as far as I can remember, so again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think from a constructor's standpoint, it's probably the best performance that Ferrari have put on since we started commentating on this league. First, Sandman, his performances speak for themselves, but I don't remember a time where he's had a teammate that's been as high as 4th as the debutant is currently. And a lot of time to go, we're only halfway through the race, anything can happen. A lot has happened in this first half. Who's to say that a lot more will happen in the second half? But again, I said it earlier, if he comes in and performs, is Sandman going to be pushing for a new permanent teammate? Yes, he'll want that. Yes, he'll want that drivers' championship. But with the dominance of Johnsy, will he have half an eye on that constructors and think, you know, I'm not winning or I'm potentially not winning the Drivers' Championship because of the other drivers' performance. I'm not going to win the Constructors because my teammates haven't been doing their side, which is what you need if you're going to win the Constructors. Do you think he could potentially be having a word and making a push for a new permanent teammate if it means that he's got a shot at the Constructors? Should the drivers fall by the wayside?
Yeah, I think as long as it's not at the expense of the drivers, I think he'd be all for that. I think if it's going to affect his Drivers' Championship chances, I think that's where you'd probably turn around and say, no, maybe not, but that could be a selfish way of looking at it. As it stands in the Drivers' Championship, it is Danger David who's the leader, AMS Johnsy in second, and VSM Sandman in third. There's currently 60 points separating VSM Sandman from Danger David, and only 17.5 points separating Johnsy from Danger David. So this is huge. Danger David, of course, would extend his lead over Johnsy at the end of this, but VSM Sandman will almost certainly take second place, if not first, if Danger David struggles to hold on to second place on the restart. Of course, Formula 1 Farah and Tobley Ensign both on the quicker medium tyres, same age as Danger David and Sandman's hard tyres, so it could all change, and there is a chance that Ferrari could still get a strong 1-2 out of this as well. Just looking at the constructors' standings at the moment, it is Red Bull leading on 528.5. In second place is Haas, 109 behind, and then it's Ferrari in third on 176. So whilst this is a great race for Williams at the moment, who are currently sat in third and fifth, they're currently sat at the bottom, 388 points behind Red Bull, who are currently leading it. So is this the turning point for Formula 1 Farah and Kwan? Is this the spark that they need to reignite their season? We are in Canada a couple of weeks' time, then there's Portugal and France to see out the season. So there's still a long way to go. There's still a chance that, yes, Williams could be competitive, but for me, if this is how it's going to end, Ferrari will make a huge gap, which is currently 176 points, on Red Bull. So it'd be interesting to see just what happens as we are back underway in just a moment's time, as we wait and see what the decision is. With the safety car heading in, VSM Sandman will be the pace setter for the third time. As he heads round onto the pit straight, he is followed by Danger David shortly behind. Formula 1 Farah then in third place. Of course, no DRS at the moment. I think that will come at the end of this lap, as Tobley Ensign nearly loses out on the position to the Williams of Kwan, who took a sneaky little look on the inside on that first turn. Bear in mind that Quincy does have a drive-through penalty that will have to be served before the conclusion of lap 20, after the safety car disrupted things ever so slightly for us there. So let's jump on board with Formula 1 Farah, who's putting the pressure a little bit onto the second place Danger David, as the gap between Danger David and Sandman is still around half a second. Kwan has lost the position to Sir Ibo as the Haas starts to continue putting pressure on. Danger David still just behind VSM Sandman. This could be interesting. This is what we wanted to see. There's a yellow flag in Sector 2, and I believe that is Sir Ibo, who's fallen in the Haas down into 13th place, now into 14th place. So Skin, I'll come across to you to see if you saw just what happened there, as we stay on board for the next couple of corners at the very least, with Danger David, who's heading his way through, keeping the pressure tough onto his competitor of VSM Sandman in the Ferrari, heading into a DRS zone. Of course, cannot use DRS until at the very least the end of this lap, when race control tell us, yep, you can take the piss and use it again. We're now back on board we'll jump on board quickly with Toxic, as he's the next closest, and he's putting the pressure onto the Williams of Kwan. Skin, did you see what happened to Sir Ibo?
I didn't, mate, unfortunately, so I can't help you on that one.
Excellent.
But there is a excuse me, incident on Sector 3. Just tried to go down the track to find it, but haven't been able to. I'm just going to jump back on board with Danger David. Sorry, I was just sort of keeping an half an eye on it on the top of the grid coming out of that safety car. Sandman trying to pull away, increase and regain that lead that he had earlier in the race before. There's sort of, I mean, I'd say back-to-back safety cars. They weren't quite, but there wasn't much time between them, was there? So, yeah, Danger David already a second behind Sandman. I'd love to get some insight into the kind of setups these guys use and that kind of stuff, because it's incredible driving. It's something that I'll never be able to achieve. It does baffle me a little bit. As I just jump on board with the No Stable to be able to see Toxic move up into 6th place. Again, this is where we found incidents where a couple of drivers have overtaken, a couple of drivers behind them have caught up. That's then led to a little bit of a train, and it only takes one person to go a little bit wide, a little bit slow, a little bit unsure going into a corner, which causes an incident. So, as it stands so far, everyone seems to be relatively comfortable. But I've thought that before, and then 30 seconds later we've had a safety car out on track. Yeah, just with this bunch at the minute, sort of between 7th and 8th, does seem to be the smallest gap on the track. The back two, Quincy and Sturabo, miles behind each other and the rest of the track. Sandman nearly 1.5 seconds ahead. Danger David has got a 3-second gap from third. Everyone else, is a bit of contact there by T-Bran on the No Sabo. The No Sabo did have a little bit of a wobble, but managed to keep control. Nate Danger Davis had multiple warnings as Toxic is back to front on the grid. Unfortunately, he was round the next corner, and it is a safety car. So Danger David has got a 3-second time penalty at the same time that Toxic has
no way.
ended up facing the wrong way, and it brings out the 4th safety car of the race. There's a couple of drivers there, Danger David and Tobillinson. Bloody hell. Tobby. I'm going to call him Tobby. A pit-in, as are a couple of others as well. So this is really where strategies can change. Do drivers take the risk of moving on to softs maybe? I'm on board with Toxic still after that spin. These tyres don't look in the best condition, so we'll be interested. Around 13 laps left, some of which will be under safety car, so can manage those tyres, and he is going on to softs as well as changing his front wing. And to be honest, I think quite lucky Toxic will feel at the moment that he's not ended up out of the race. Danger David now down to 7th after that pit, onto mediums with that 3-second time penalty. Surely, I mean, it was looking like it was the case before that safety car, but now it's got to be a Sandman win we're looking at once the race is done.
I don't know, I feel like he's been very unfortunate with that. The safety car has come out as he's gone past the pit entry, so he's missed his chance to pit, and it was instinct and quick response from Danger David that put him into the pits to change himself onto those medium tyres. Now, before the safety car came out, Danger David was within a second of Sandman on equal tyres. Now he's going to be on fresher, quicker tyres. I'm not sure it's going to be in Sandman's favour. If he can get past some of these drivers pretty quickly, or if we see another safety car down the line, I think Danger David's going to be able to put a lot of pressure on the current defending champion. So it was a quick impulse decision, I think, from Danger David. We'll find out, hopefully, after the race, but that depends on whether he's finished in the top 3 or not. The top 3 currently stands as Sandman, Formula 1 Farah and RS0121, and what a race this has turned out to be for the two Williams. I mean, of course, the safety car reduces the pressure that your tyres need. It allows you to go much slower, and of course saves the tyres' life expectancy, of course, and that works for the likes of Formula 1 Farah, who pitted earlier on for them medium tyres, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, mate, absolutely. And this is why I was interested to see what tyres Toxic would go on. He did go on to softs. What do you think about that decision? Someone like Danger David that's got to put the pressure on, that struggled to keep up with Sandman in an open race, going on to mediums, or do you think it might have been worth the risk of going on to a soft tyre and really attack the last sort of 9 or 10 laps once the safety car goes in?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was just asking about the decision of what tyres to go on. So Toxic went in. I was interested to see what tyres we would be going on, or he would be going on, sorry, and he chose softs. I was thinking someone like a Danger David that's had to pit and gone on to mediums. Do you think it would have been worth the risk taking on the soft tyres to give you the opportunity to be super aggressive going into the last 9 or so laps once the safety car goes in?
Absolutely. I was surprised he didn't, if I'm honest. We've seen already some of these soft tyres last about 8 laps behind a safety car, maybe even more, and we've got a safety car and it's at the very beginning of it, so we'd be looking at 9 laps without a safety car, and I think soft tyres could easily do that. So I'm surprised he didn't go for those soft tyres, but I think he's erring on the side of caution. He's got to get that 3-second time penalty out of the way. He's got to try and make that on whoever he's about. So this could really change things up for his season, especially his race. That 3-second could really make all the difference. I mean, I know it's not yet back underway, but you think that 3 seconds is currently leaving him down in 10th place from 7th. That's huge. Wait until he gets closer up the grid as well. When he's overtaking a car, drivers aren't necessarily going to push so much on him. They're just going to have to stay within that 3 seconds, and I think that's where you're going to really see him fall back down. We saw it with Sandman when he ended up on, you know, that country mile penalty that he ended up with, that was like 40 seconds. He nearly ended up a lap behind everyone because of the penalties. You know, it makes a huge difference. And I know that was just one, but I think that might have been him pushing a little bit too hard to get to VSM Sandman. But we're going to see whether those medium tyres were the right decision or not. We are going to get around 11 laps left of racing here in Singapore. So we'll jump on board with RS0121 as VSM Sandman is currently out on track. And for the 4th time, he is, of course, the pace setter. So when the safety car heads back in just a moment's time, we'll let him take us back onto the pit straight. This time, for the 4th time, a different driver just behind him. So each time he's set things back up for us, he's had a different driver just behind him. But I think Formula 1 Farah is standing right behind him, as opposed to other drivers that maybe have given him that little bit further space. So is this going to be a case of a quick response from the Williams driver to try and put him under that pressure? We'll jump back on board with RS0121 in the hope to get a good view of it, as Toxic takes a time penalty of 3 seconds. Away we go. Sandman heading up onto the end of the pit straight, still trying to warm his tyres up ever so slightly. He's got Formula 1 Farah just behind him, RS0121 just behind him as well. But this is closer between Formula 1 Farah and VSM Sandman than it has with any other driver and VSM Sandman in this race when the race has restarted. And those medium tyres could be all the difference between whether it's going to be a Ferrari or a Williams on the top step of this podium, as Formula 1 Farah continues to put the pressure on him. Is he going to have a look up on the inside? No, he's not. He's going to stay just behind him whilst we take this corner. He's going to have another couple of opportunities, though, before at the end of this lap, when we get to see DRS being re-enabled, nearly catches the wall but manages to steer just clear of it. He's now half a second behind the Ferrari as we go through to the end of Sector 1, the beginning, in fact, of Sector 2. Both the medium tyres of Formula 1 Farah and the hard tyres of VSM Sandman are of the same age, as RS0121 tries to close that gap on the two drivers that are competing for the top step of the podium at the moment. Danger David still sat in 6th place, still quite close to T-Bran in the Alfa Romeo, though, as it looked like a very slow take of that corner heading into the second DRS zone that we get on the Singapore track. The fastest lap does currently sit with VSM. Sandman is again a little bit wide. It looked like Formula 1 Farah was going, and that's opened the gap a little bit, both for Sandman to take a distance and RS0121 to close the gap. The worry that Sandman's going to have is if RS0121 can get past him very quickly, and maybe even the No Sabo, his chances of finishing on the top step of the podium are in danger. And we've got Formula 1 Farah now defending against RS0121. How long can he keep this for as we're getting ready to head on to the end of the first lap, since the safety car headed back into the pit lane, as we've got a yellow flag, and it looks like it is with Kwan, the Williams. The Williams were doing so well, and he's gone a little bit wide and ended up in the wall. I'm not quite sure on the damage there, but we'll see if he heads back into the pits as the end of the first lap goes. RS0121 now 0.4 of a second just behind the Williams of Formula 1 Farah. He looked like he was about to take an attempt onto the inside line, but it's forced out wide onto the outside to sit in 3rd place. But we've got a Mercedes and a Williams fighting for 2nd place on the podium as it stands at the moment. This little battle allowing Sandman to push further out as he goes onto the outside line. Goes very close to contact, ends up going off track as well, rejoins ahead of Formula 1 Farah, keeps the inside line this time, doesn't collide with the wall, but I think Formula 1 Farah has ended up going very, very slow as a result of that, and RS0121 takes 2nd place, 2nd step on the podium. Some very nice battling from the two of them, and I think there it looked like T-Brand's gone wide into the wall,
incident,
and that's caused a collision there.
Big incident again. Big incident again. Yeah, just again, exactly the same as we've had throughout the race when we've had safety cars. Cars starting to get a bit bunched up, and it's, again, with the street race, we've said it during qualifying, we said at the start of the race, we've said it in every incident that we've had so far. I'm really surprised it's not a safety car, although T-Brand one isn't out, so maybe that's what saved it. But yeah, just again, it's similar. Cars getting bunched up, and again it only takes one car going slightly wide, slightly slow, slightly too fast, another car's not expecting it, and that ends in a collision. But Danger David now down into 8th place, and Sir Rebo gets a 3-second time penalty. But yeah, the incident itself, mate, very much along the lines of what we've seen so far in this race.
Well, DRS has now been enabled, and those soft tyres look like they could make all the difference, but it's nearly 3 seconds the lead now between Sandman and RS0121 Formula 1 Farah in 3rd place. in the Williams, the Nocebo in 4th place in the McLaren. If he can get himself onto the podium, I'm going to be extremely proud, so I can't wait for that. Here we go with Truckster then. We'll jump on board with the AlphaTauri on soft tyres. Half a second away from Tobliensen in 6th place. Both on soft tyres, closing that gap on the likes of Skid Solo, but then it's a 3.5 second gap between them and the McLaren of Nocebo, so it is going to be close in the battle if they can get past Skid Solo any time soon. But at the moment, they just look to be battling with each other. Truckster, of course, starting at the back of the grid for this race after being disqualified from qualifying. I think he was up in 5th place, he said it was, Skin, before he got disqualified as well. So a great effort from him to get himself up into 7th place, and certainly a good shout for driver of the day if you're unsure who to pick. As we jump on board with the Nocebo in the McLaren, 8 tenths behind Formula 1 Farah, and his chance to get himself onto a podium finish. We'll see if the upgrades from McLaren in real life can be put onto this game just for the sake of this race, to see if we can get ourselves over the line. I'm excited to see just what happens with the McLaren. You're fine, because Danger David and D. Perez do this for you all the time. The Nocebo and Maverick deserve this, as does every McLaren fan out there. So unbiased to one side, let's go McLaren.
Yeah, if you want, mate. If that's what makes you happy for 1 week, mate, let's make you happy for 1 week.
Well, you get this all the time, don't you? So it's very different for me.
Very different
exactly.
For me. Enjoy it while it lasts, mate.
Luxury. I will. As 7 tenths behind Formula 1 Farah, DRS is open. He's got the opportunity on the inside line, but I think this straight might just be too far for him. It is the case, so he's going to have to yield and stay just behind Formula 1 Farah for a little bit longer, as 2.3 seconds is now the gap between RS0121 and the current leader of VSM. Sandman, we've got the Nocebo down in 4th place now, 3 tenths behind.
Hey. Up in 4th place, I'll have you know, not down in 4th place. What a performance from him so far.
Up in 4th place at the moment, 4 tenths behind Formula 1 Farah, heading through Sector 2 at the moment with the opportunity on the DRS zone again. If he can get it, and the straight can last long enough for him, there's a chance he could still get himself onto a podium finish here for McLaren. Danger David, of course, falling down into 8th place after that incident that happened shortly after the last safety car went away as well. So is that the Red Bull's chances out of the window? We've got 7 laps left to go to see just what happens. He's out on the medium tyres, and of course, with that 3-second time penalty as well, we'll see him fall down into 9th place. There's every chance that this race is falling into the favour of the defending world champion of VSM Salman, who is out in 1st place at the moment, as the Nocebo goes up onto the outside, keeps the outside line against Formula 1 Farah with the assistance of DRS, takes 3rd place away from the Williams and holds that position going round into the next couple of corners with a little bit of runoff, uses that to his advantage to keep 3rd place ahead of Formula 1 Farah. But it's the Nocebo now that takes 3rd place with the assistance of DRS that makes all the difference. But he's still got a bit of defending work to do on those medium tyres if he's going to keep himself there. And Formula 1 Farah has collided with the wall. And that's advantage to the McLaren.
I was on board with him again. I've caught it again. He's just gone. It's that same corner from earlier, going under the bridge. He's clattered into the wall. He were almost going at a speed where it was a straight and didn't even realise it was a corner. But yeah, smashed into the wall. His right tyre is blown to smithereens. And it's another one out of the race, 5th driver out of the race today. And no safety car. I don't know if that's due to how close we are to the end of the race, if that's an automatic thing, but you get that much damage and you block that bridge, that's a safety car under any other circumstances, so can only assume it's because we are in the last 5 or so laps. As Danger David is pitting again, gone on to soft tyres, really not sure where that will leave him come the end of the race. But yeah, huge crash for what was a fantastic race. It was only a couple of laps ago you were talking about the fantastic race that Williams were having, and now you've got Kwan down in 14th and Farah is out. So yeah, big turnaround for the Williams, unfortunately.
Well, there's 6 laps left to go, and since moving up into 3rd place, the Nocebo has gained around half a second on RS0121, but we are on board with Truckster, who started the race in 18th place after the disqualification, currently sat in 5th place in the AlphaTauri, and he is piling the pressure on those soft tyres and onto the Aston Martin of Skid Solo, heading through Sector 3 quite comfortably. There is another DRS zone coming up, of course, onto the pit straight, but we are just going to pass where the incident of Formula 1 Farah crashing out was, and that is under the bridge. And we're going to see if he can get ahead of Skid Solo by the end of lap 26. He's very much on the tail of him, and I think DRS, again, could be the difference maker. It's just whether the straight is going to be long enough. A couple of corners later, there is another opportunity for him, so it could set him up nicely. DRS opened nice and early up alongside here with Skid Solo heading into the first corner, and Skid Solo holds that position in the Aston Martin quite nicely. It was the awful camera that the game decided to give us there, which didn't really explain too much for us. See if he's managed to keep that position. He was very close to being outside of the DRS detection zone in 1 second as he goes out onto the pit straight, or another straight should I say, sorry, and he has been given DRS, so a bit of a longer straight for him now to see if he can close the gap even further on Skid Solo. Not quite enough, and the Aston Martin holds 4th place as it stands at the moment. But whilst these two are battling, it's given the McLaren of Nosebo a chance to push himself further on, and I think the only other place we've got much of a battle is that in the battle for 10th place, for 9th place should I say, sorry, where Sir Ibo is battling with the Alpine of Racing Wheel. He's going to have DRS going into the middle of Sector 1 as well. Going to have to try and keep up onto the inside of him. And he's gone actually onto the outside to try and keep this line as well, and I think it's going to be the difference maker there. He does go onto the outside, which makes it a little bit easier for Racing Wheel to hold that position. But with Danger David down in 11th place, is this race over for the Red Bull skin?
I don't want to admit it, mate, but I have to say, yeah, the Perez out early doors. Danger David has pitted twice in the last 4 laps, safety car or not, down in 11th, and I'm not really sure where he can finish with this little amount of time to go. The gap does seem to be increasing between everyone at the moment. I'm on board with Ibo in 10th. He's been kind of there or thereabouts on Racing Wheel the last lap or so, but not really getting in a position where he can overtake. Everyone else is over a second behind the person in front. So as it stands, driver of the day, the Nosebo, one of the, no disrespect meant, but usually one of the drivers towards the back end of the grid, has found his way up onto a podium spot. Trusted a little bit of a kick out there from his back end, but managed to keep it under control. But yeah, top story is Sandman winning yet again as it stands. Danger David and D Perez currently scoring minimal points for Red Bull when it comes to that constructors. I'll tell you
class.
what.
That's absolutely class. I'm just going to interrupt you there because of what Danger David's just done. You're talking about how it's minimal points for Red Bull, but the phenomenal overtake he's just provided us with Sir Ibo and Racing Wheel is beyond this world. In 2 corners, taking it past the Haas and then taking it past the Alpine, very composed, very confidently, and he's already 1.5 seconds ahead of the Alpine up into 9th place. So it's probably too little too late for him to really put any pressure on Toxic, but he's up into 9th place, and it's really damage limitation for the Red Bull. It was really strange, that decision to box, wasn't it, on the second safety car, and of course it's changed it all for him, hasn't it? He's down onto 9th place at the minute, and it's gifted an excellent chance for Ferrari to close that gap in the Constructors' Championship. But yeah, sorry for interrupting, but that was worth the mention for Danger David. Yeah,
definitely, mate. We spoke earlier, I was saying that I'm hoping for a race where Danger David doesn't have an incident early doors and has to spend the race climbing up from the back of the track, but maybe that's what works for him, because he's avoided incident today. He's been sort of top 3 for the majority of the race, other than when there's been a safety car and pitting and things, and he's ended up down in 9th, so maybe early incident and working his way back up is the formula for Danger David. I don't know. But I've finally got what I wanted, which is something a little bit different, and he's ended up finishing a lot lower than what he normally does there.
Yeah, I think the closest we've got for competition at the moment is that of Sir Ibo, T-Bran and Racing Wheel, as now it's the turn of T-Bran. I think this battle between Sir Ibo and Racing Wheel is just inviting other cars to kind of catch up with them, because it's just worked in the favour of Danger David, who already has a 10-second lead over Racing Wheel, as T-Bran manages to get the position on the inside line there over Sir Ibo and takes 11th place away from him. Danger David, the fastest lap, 1:40.2 in a race environment, is an incredible time to set, and he's cut that gap down by 15 seconds in the last lap on Toxic CZ10. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Maybe it is rags to riches that works in favour of Danger David in these sort of races. Multiple times throughout the season we've seen him fall towards the back of the grid, work his way back up, and it seems to be working in his favour again. Damage limitation is still the case though for Red Bull. I can't see him competing with the very front of this track, and don't forget, of course, there is still a 3-second time penalty that we need to add on there. Is Toxic just behind Quincy in the battle for 7th place. Quincy defending it quite nicely at the moment, but that is the only real challenge we've got going on at the moment. I know T-Brand's quite close to Racing Wheel in the battle for 10th place, but of course the Mercedes of Quincy very slow in qualifying, so he'll be happy with the top 7 finish. His teammate, of course, sat on the second step of the podium, so in that little battle he'll be slightly disappointed in, but over the course of the entire qualifying and race weekend, I'd say advantage has to go to RS0121. So Skin, with 2 laps left to go before I bring it home, I'll ask you for your driver of the day.
It's got to be the No Sabo. Like I said, no disrespect, but he's usually one of the drivers towards the back end of the grid to get, a little bit of a kick out there from Sabo, but great control to keep it on track. I've got to give it No Sabo. You've got to give him the credit. I'm sure coming off the back of this race, if we can hold on to the 3rd place and that final spot on the podium for this last couple of laps, going to be absolutely buzzing heading into the next race in a couple of weeks' time.
See, the thing is here is I was very close to giving this Trugster, and a large part of me wants to give it to Trugster because he started in 18th and he's currently in 5th place, and his strategy has been on point, his driving has been on point to get him there. But I have to agree with you, it's got to be the No Sabo, just because of the way he's approached this race. Like you say, he's not somebody that we normally see this high up, but again, somebody that's absolutely nailed this strategy. He's managed to get these medium tyres to what is currently 14 laps. The only issue is, at the moment, it could be neck and neck between him and Skid Solo as to which one actually finishes on the final step of the podium. It looks like the age of those tyres are starting to catch up with him ever so slightly, and the Aston Martin is going to have a last couple of laps to put the pressure on. If he can get it within a second, this really is anybody's race for 3rd place. VSM Sandman, he's long gone in the distance. RSO121, yep, he's taken 2nd place. So this 3rd place is what both of them are really going to be fighting for. Trugster's too far behind. It is a 2-horse race for 3rd place. And if they can get inside of the DRS zone, there might still be entertainment for the podium for us yet to see. But Danger David has cut off another 12 seconds, and he's now in DRS zone of Toxic in the battle for 8th place, as we've got a yellow flag, and I want to say that has gone to Quan as Danger David. Again, we joined him just as he finishes the overtake there on Toxic to leave it in Alfa Romeo 9 and 10th place. But he's up into 8th place, and I think before he pitted he was actually in 10th, so he's gained a phenomenal amount of time there to get himself up into 8th, and it doesn't even look like he's finished there. There's still another lap left, and he's closing the gap onto Quincy. And this guy, when the pressure is on, all bets are off. He's a different driver completely, and he's up in 8th place at the moment. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Maybe when we get to Canada in a couple of weeks' time, I know you're not going to be there for that race as you're away, mate. I hope you enjoy your time off, and I hope everyone listening joins me in wishing you a good break, as you've been absolutely phenomenal tonight, as you always are. But I'm wondering if Danger David makes a mad dive going into the first corner in Canada, just to push him towards the back of the track to give him something to chase. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's when he's at his best. Just on board with Skid Solo for these last couple of laps. I'm sure he's going to push hard to try and get this final spot. The No Sabo, though, not really giving him an opportunity as it stands to close the gap and clean that final podium. I'll be honest. I'll be absolutely gutted if the No Sabo just loses out on that podium spot with around a lap and a half to go. Is it? Yeah, around that. But yeah, I mean, Sandman again. What do you think? We're talking a lot about the rest of the grid, which is good. It's, we do spend a lot of the time talking about the usual suspects, but as we go into the final lap, it's worth talking about. 10-second gap. There's been multiple safety cars, multiple different strategy changes, multiple crashes across the track, but he's avoided any and all incident, and he's gained yet another comfortable win, which in our time commentating, or at least our time commentating where it's been both of us, seems to have been the case when Johnsey's not on the track. But another dominant win for the man that's won the last 3 drivers' championships in this league. Yeah, certainly. So under the bright lights and the dark nights that Singapore has to offer, Sandman from pole position with 3 different one-shot qualifying sessions he set himself up for, leaving it till the last minute to take pole position away from Danger David in the qualifying session earlier on, has led from almost the very beginning of this race. And we said at the very beginning, we don't get to see many races where only one stop has been used. VSM Sandman has done
game
just
over.
that.
Skid Solo was spun, and that should now mean that the No Sabo, unless he has a similar incident, will claim the 3rd spot. Sorry to interrupt you, Adam. I was just on board with Skid Solo, keeping an eye on the race for that final podium spot, and yeah, he took a spin. So the No Sabo now relatively comfortable with just under a 6-second gap to 4th. But again, anything can happen, as we can see. Even when you're driving by yourself, this track can still offer problems, as we've just seen there. Skid Solo hasn't lost the position, is still 4th, but it seems like the race for that final podium spot is now over.
Yeah, the race from Sandman has been simply faultless from start to finish. I think he lost first place just once when he chose to pit, but he crosses the line now to answer his critics and takes first place away from what everyone expected to be a nice, confident Red Bull 1-2. He is somewhat 16 seconds ahead of the Mercedes of RS0121, who will cross the line to give it a good weekend for the Mercedes, who actually get themselves a strong points finish, and of course onto the second step of the podium. And then we're going to jump on to my boy, the No Sabo, in the McLaren. 3 seconds behind. I say this every single time a McLaren does well, and No Sabo takes 3rd place. Skid Solo rue the chances that he missed, but he'll take 4th place in the Aston Martin. And then Trugster, who is still under a little bit of pressure from VSM Sandman's teammate in Tobelenzen, is what we're going to go with at the final point of this. He's gone into the wall, but he's gone into the wall. He's gone a little bit too early, maybe? No, I think he's gone just in time. He's done the exact same as what Sandman does. It's the Ferraris. They piss about all the time. Truxer takes 5th place. Quincy takes 7th place. Danger David, after multiple pit stops and strategy changes himself, will take 8th place. Toxic then in the Alfa Romeo in 9th place. 10th place to T-Bran. Racing Wheel will take 11th place in the Alpine, as we'll just... despite his penalties, will hold on to 12th place, and it means bringing us home and concluding the race in the Williams. It looked very good at one point for both Quan and Formula 1 Farah. One got a DNF, one finished in the lowest ranked place of all the classifications, and it's not been quite the weekend they'd hoped for after so much promise was given to them. So we've got Sandman on the top step, RS0121 in 2nd place, and then the No Sabo in 3rd place. So it's nice to see an array of different teams, I dare say, in the top 3 positions. We're used to just seeing, of course, VSM Sandman, AMS Johnsy and Nay Danger David. So it's nice to see RS and the No Sabo up there, just to be a little bit of a change. We're hoping in just a few moments' time, of course, we'll get reaction from both of them. Skin, I'll let you take away, of course, one of those interviews. Which one do you want?
I mean, I can't take the McLaren off you, surely.
I was hoping not.
Well, there you go then.
There we go. So I'll take the McLaren one, and of course VSM Sandman won't be joining us for the post-race interview. He doesn't tend to do that, but that's absolutely fine. It's just a shame that he finishes on the podium nearly every race. So we are one interview down every single week. But in just a moment's time, we'll be back to bring you the final thoughts from the drivers that did get to finish on the podium. But it looks like it is going to be advantage VSM Sandman in the Drivers' Championship, an advantage Ferrari despite his 3rd different teammate for the season. They are currently closing that gap on Haas and Red Bull at the top of the Constructors' Championship.